morning, everybody. We will start the City Council meeting for July 18th, 2023. Please call roll.
Garza.
Here.
Conklin.
Here.
Goss.
Here.
Fast.
Here.
Richardson.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Mr. Paul Brown will lead us in prayer.
Join me in prayer. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the freedoms that you've allowed us to experience. Lord, we pray for our workers. Pray for our workers for their safety during these very, very hot days, and pray that they'll be kept safe. Lord, thank you for blessing us and providing everything that we need. Lord, we thank you most of all for Jesus. It's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Next item, please.
Item 4, a proclamation for Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day.
Are you Amanda?
Yeah.
All right. I'll be joined by Amanda Vega up here, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed on July 26, 1990 to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities, and whereas the City of Hutchinson, Kansas affirms the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities as set forth by the state of Kansas and is embodied in the ADA, the laws of the state of Kansas, and ordinances of the City of Hutchinson and Hutchinson Human Relations Commission. And whereas numerous organizations in the city of Hutchinson, Kansas work with constituents and communities to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the passage of the ADA. And whereas the purpose of Beyond Barriers, formerly Prairie Independent Living Resource Center, is to achieve the full inclusion and acceptance of people with disabilities through education and advocacy. And whereas July 23rd, 2023 celebrates the 32nd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act in the city of Hutchinson, Kansas. Now, therefore, I, John Richardson, Mayor of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, do hereby proclaim July 23rd, 2023 as Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes.
Okay,
please.
go ahead.
On this anniversary of Americans with Disabilities Act, we, Beyond Barriers, celebrate and recognize the progress that's been made by reaffirming the principles of equality, inclusion, and recommitting our efforts to reach the full ADA compliance.
Thank you. Let's get a picture if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, get a picture here and I'll hand this to you. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 5, oral communications from the audience.
All right, this is part of our meeting where we open up the podium to oral communications from the audience. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes and to items not on the agenda. If you do come up, please state your name and address. All right, we will move on to the next item.
Item 6, consent agenda.
Any discussion on the items on the consent agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second that.
We have a motion second. Any other discussion or questions? Please call roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 7A, consider resolution authorizing the partial redemption of general obligation bonds.
Good morning, Council. Angela Richard, Director of Finance. Back in 2015 and 16, we issued $27,430,000 of bonds for the sports arena improvements. Also in July of 2015, a special sales tax was enacted, 0.35%, to pay the bonds for those improvements. Today, we have excess money in our sports arena debt fund. We have $6.6 million, so we are asking council's approval to spend an extra $3 million on principal payments in October. We have to do this resolution and approve it in order to make that extra payment, and then we will notify the holders of the bonds that we will be calling them early. and we will notify the state. This is just for the part that we plan to pay off early in 2023. We anticipate by July to September of 2024, we will be able to pay off all of the bonds, and then we will be allowed to let the sales tax expire. Are there any questions?
If I missed it, I apologize. Did you say anything or have an idea of what the potential savings and interest would be?
Oh, yes, it is in my memo. I forgot to state the extra $3 million that we're going to pay would save an extra $125,000, approximately.
All right, thank
I
you.
have a question. So that leaves another 3 million in this account. What happens to that account? What happens to that 3 million?
Okay, so right now we have 6.6. This
Yeah.
would spend all of that paying towards the principal and interest in October. We already would be paying 3.3 million according to the debt schedule. This is asking you for permission to spend that extra 3 million
okay,
on the
okay, I
debt
see.
payments.
Okay.
Yes.
Does the tax sunset?
It is a 10-year tax, but if we paid the bonds off early, we would be allowed to let that expire early.
And what's the process for allowing it to expire?
I haven't gone through that completely before, but our bond counsel has, so they'll guide me through that process. We have to let the state know that that is going to expire. We have to let them know 3 months ahead of time, and it would expire at the beginning of a quarter.
Okay.
So we'll have to just watch those collections closely and see if they come in like they currently are, or if they drop off, and kind of time that correctly.
Okay. And what's the process for continuing the tax?
The tax will expire after 2025.
Okay.
And so then if you wanted to continue, you would need another election.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
So I gather we making one payment every year towards these bonds, am I right?
That's the way the debt, the general obligation bonds are structured for everything we issue. We make a payment in April for half the interest, and we make a payment in October for the principal and the rest of the interest.
So we will, okay, I understand, thank you.
Sounds like a win for our
Yes.
taxpayers.
Yes.
I would like to mention that because this is from sales tax, I know that this is something that the Hutch Chamber has worked really, really hard to boost our tax, especially the tax that other people are paying when they come to visit through their work. And so I would like to just take a second and say thanks to the Chamber. And I know they're probably watching in their office, wherever you are. And thanks to all of the people who have supported this initiative and the businesses for paying their taxes.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
All right, well, I would entertain a motion on this then.
I move to approve a resolution authorizing the partial redemption of the general obligation bonds, Series 2015B, and the general obligation bonds 2016A of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, from the proceeds of the city's retailer sales tax levied on the amount of 35 1/100ths of 1%, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this? If not, please call roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 7B, consider resolution of intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate.
Okay, Angela Richard, Director of Finance. This is the next step in our budget process. We have agreed during our study sessions, or you have agreed, to exceed the revenue neutral rate for our mill levy. It was previously agreed that we would split it in between what it was for the 2023 budget and what the revenue neutral rate is. So before you see a lower mill levy than last year, but still not meeting the revenue neutral rate. So in 2023, it was 41.555. We are proposing 40.326, and the revenue neutral rate is 39.104. So in order to exceed our revenue neutral rate, we need to pass this resolution, which gives city staff permission to tell the county what the set mill levy should be. We can always lower it from there, but we can't increase it once I notify the county. They will mail out the letters to tax citizens, or to citizens, and it will state the date of our hearing. So this resolution also sets the date of our budget hearing to September 5th. It must be between August 20th and September 20th. So I picked a set council meeting in between there. Any questions?
I would make a comment on this, and we did this last year as well, even though we shot for revenue neutral.
Correct.
Due to the, I wouldn't call it it's the hassle if you happen to exceed revenue neutral even by, a penny?
Correct.
You have to go to all the different taxpayers and you either have to pay them back. How does that go if you actually exceed revenue neutral by a
If you
minute amount?
exceed revenue neutral and you didn't go through the procedures, the county either then has permission to lower you to revenue neutral, but if they don't catch it, and we do collect more in revenue, we would have to find a way to pay the taxpayers back that excess that we had collected.
And it could cost more than the excess we collected.
Yeah,
to do that.
the mail, the postage, and the checks could cost more, in theory.
Angela, can you speak to the 23 budget? Are we going to come in at revenue neutral like we had intended, even though we made notice that we could exceed it, but we still wanted that revenue neutral? Are we going to end the year with revenue neutral?
It is hard to say based on collections because we still have like motor vehicle wouldn't be factored into that. I think because of the delinquents, we won't quite hit revenue neutral in our ad valorem line. The delinquents will make up for that, but that I don't know if that answers that.
That's okay.
But,
Well, even the county, who has publicly stated that their intent is to remain revenue neutral, has done this filing just last week or the week before. So this is
Correct.
just a step in the process of the legislative constraints, was the word you were looking for, that we have to follow.
Well,
Unfortunately,
and
it's bad
let's-
PR, but it's
yeah,
required.
let's be very clear. We are lowering our mill levy. We're trying to be good stewards of the dollars that are entrusted to us, and feel like this is going to be okay.
My question, the 41, what were the three numbers there?
okay, last year's was 41.555. We're proposing 40.326, and revenue neutral would be 30.104.
39.
39.104.
And,
yes.
and the, now, you made a statement, or at least I understood it this way, and I may have misunderstood. So if we say 40 point whatever, 3 or whatever, we can't go higher than that?
Once we tell the county through this resolution that we're going to do 40.326, we can't raise that mill levy.
Okay, that's the
We-
highest you can do.
That's
So-
the highest
well,
we could
so
legally
is that-
do with
is
that.
So, given that that is the law or whatever, are we sure that that number is gonna be achievable? Or
That
should, I mean, what is being said is you can put any number on here you want. You don't have to, that's what is being said. I mean, you can put 41 on here, you can put 39.8, you can put whatever.
if the council's intentions are to levy that amount, you could increase the mill levy to 45 if you wanted, but you as the council would probably hear from taxpayers. So.
Well, no, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to make sure I have clarity here.
Mm-hmm.
So my question then is the 40.326, are we sure that that is gonna, we got all this negotiations and stuff out there, are we confident that is a number that we will be able to stay at and below, is my question.
You mean to bond and to work
Well-
within our budget?
Well, she says we have to put a number on this and send
Mm-hmm.
it in, and then we cannot exceed that.
Well, and our revenues aren't limited to only the property tax.
Right.
So there is gonna be some variable
Yes.
budgeting on that, yeah.
Well, I'm not saying we should have a higher number. I'm saying that the number that we turn in,
tying
we
ourselves
can,
too
yeah,
tight.
and I'm asking if based on your knowledge, that we think that number is gonna be achievable, and we may be able to do better than that number, be lower than that number. We don't have to spend that number, but we can't spend more than that number, is what you're saying.
Right,
So-
right. So going forward between now and September 5th, if that's agreeable for the budget hearing, you could then come back and say, we don't want to be 40.326. We do want to be revenue neutral and lower it. You could, if we could work
But we
that out in
can't
the
go to
budget.
41 at that point.
Correct.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yes. So, like today, we would want to be sure that the most you would want to have the most mill levy would be 40.326. That you have decided you don't want to go above that number.
That's
Can
the
you
question.
translate the 40.326 into dollars?
Okay, so that would give us,
Or what page of the agenda
Okay.
is it on?
I don't have that in
Okay.
in the packet. I apologize. That does give us an extra $442,639 versus what we collected last year. So it does increase our revenue that amount. It would give us a total property tax levied of $14,591,509. And based on that number is what we had presented at the last budget study session, which would get 3.8 million in our general fund. And like I said, normally we underspend, so normally our general fund balance would be higher than what's on paper. So I feel comfortable with that number. That will probably end up close to 6 million, which is our goal. So,
There's a little bit of, I don't want to say shooting in the dark, but we're throwing a dart at a dartboard based on projections and where
Yeah,
we've been at.
yeah, that's,
right.
And there's always small adjustments month to month
Yeah.
on what actually gets spent. Bids come in lower than anticipated on CIP, on some CIP projects.
Right.
So we're basically setting a standard for ourselves on how we
okay,
budget.
okay.
And can't we use reserves to help balance our budget? Or if we see we can take, so we would never exceed that 40.326. I mean, I think that's kind of how we've done it in the past, haven't we?
That is the way it's presented. We are showing more expenditures than revenue in the 24 budget. So we are showing the use of reserves, but still maintaining a general fund balance that's acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions or comments on this?
I move to approve a resolution regarding the governing body's intent to levy a property tax exceeding the revenue neutral rate and authorize the mayor to sign.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this? If not, please call roll.
Garza,
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 8A, consider ARPA Housing Grant Award recommendations.
I have a PowerPoint for this, so just a second. Okay. All right, to give you the history of the ARPA funds, the city was awarded $6.1 million, a little over that. And city council had elected that 50% of that would be going to projects identified in the community response and input using ARPA funds report. Of that money, $591,281.54 was allocated to housing NOFA projects. The Housing Commission is going to get their own pot of money, which I believe is around $300,000. I don't have that exact figure with me, but what we're talking about today is the city portion for the housing NOFA projects. So iParametrics was was hired to help us manage this money, and as a consultant, So the city and iParametrics worked together to create a NOFA, a Notice of Funding Availability, or an application that community members and organizations could apply for this specific money, for the housing money. On March 24th, we made that NOFA available to the public. April 7th, we had a Q&A workshop for anyone who was interested in applying. And then May 12th, the grant submissions were due. From that process, we had 6 applications. So the applications were LeVar Properties. This was the Davenports for the Leon. Their application was for a chiller to chill the 33 apartments that are in that building. 20 of the 33 have been renovated, and this application, this $200,000 would not pay for the entire amount of the chiller. So we had noted that they had invested over $750,000 on this project and would be putting in additional money for the chiller. This was recommended that it be fully funded by the committee that was formed to help award these projects. iParametrics had rated them and given them points, and then our committee formed to review them and award based on that. The second application was the Landmark. As you know, or may know, there's a project to redo the Landmark, bring it back to life, and as part of that, I believe there will be, I was trying to remember the number of apartments, I believe it's 44 apartments that will be brought back to life there. So this would be a small contribution towards what the entire project would be for doing that. The next project was New Beginnings. New Beginnings would like to create small homes, and the committee that reviewed this likes the idea that this could be a pilot project to test out the idea of small homes on lots to see if this is something we could duplicate throughout the city and on infill properties. Interfaith Housing and Community Services applied for a solar panel for the Lighthouse project. Horizons Mental Health Center had applied for emergency housing. It would be 3 units and then a 4th unit that would be occupied by the property manager, where they could offer some emergency housing. The committee also noted that on their application, part of this was for funding the program manager's salaries, and didn't feel like this should go towards salaries. And then Shashem LLC applied for blueprints for container homes, which was a unique idea. So after the committee had reviewed all these applications, we recommended $200,000 for the Leon, the $200,000 for the Landmark, and then the remainder to New Beginnings, which doesn't quite fully fund that project. So these are the recommendations of the committee. City Council has the ultimate authority to award these projects. Are there any questions about the projects or comments?
Is there any function to audit how the funds would be used when it's applied?
Yes. When they sign the contracts, which we don't quite have ready yet, but the contracts would say that we have the ability to audit them and the receipts of how they spent the money. They would be accountable for how they spent the money.
And that includes a timeline of when they spend it, correct?
That would include the timeline. They would ultimately need to have it encumbered by the end of '24, if not fully spent. City Council and the city does have discretion on how we award them, whether we give them the payments up front, whether we pay part now, part later. So Mary Grace and I had discussed that a bit as well. Like the chiller is a one-time purchase, so maybe that could be one payment, but maybe on some of the projects that might take more time, we could do 2 payments.
Thank you.
I know the program was set up as a reimbursement. And I think that we should probably respect that and, make sure that we're reimbursing for what is being done and what we've agreed to here. That would be my only thought. I don't know if we
We
can.
want to be mindful of how we're handing out the money. We want to be mindful of that it's spent in the intent and good stewards of how the money is spent, where timing of things, we're not, to make sure the money goes to the funds that they have said they will go towards.
Right.
So, as far as the mechanics of how the funds are spent, we have to have, the city of Hutchinson with the ARPA funds, we have to have the money encumbered or spent by the end of '24. So
Correct.
do we have any guidelines for, let's say, the 3 that have been recommended to be funded, that if they do not show that they are encumbered or spent by third quarter of '24, that we find another use for those funds?
Yes, we did that with the workforce and the small business as well. Both of those contracts had that if they had not been spent by some date around the third quarter of '24, we reserved the right to take back those funds and reallocate them.
Okay, and so do we need to have a potential reallocation plan by the end of second quarter of '24, to where I don't want to end up in a situation where we lose out on funding something because it wasn't encumbered or spent by the end of '24?
Yes, with those, the workforce and the small business grants, we have a reporting process in place that would allow us to know how they were coming and spending those funds by mid-24, I believe, so that we could look at those reports, determine what progress had been made, and then come up with a plan to reassign those.
I just don't want to be in
So-
a, you don't use it, you lose it situation with our own ARPA funds.
Exactly. We don't want to run into that problem. So we would make sure that there were reporting processes in place so that we're not in December of '24 trying to encumber them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's all based on how the contract's going to be written.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I feel comfortable knowing the answers to these questions. I feel comfortable recommending this as is.
Yeah, I do too. And Jim, I hate to put you on the spot, but could you speak to the changes that we made in zoning for density and how we're able to have new beginnings, build more than one home on a lot? I think that shows that we're trying to do things progressive to improve areas of town. Can you address that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because it's a real partnership opportunity with our land bank properties. So the more of these we can build, the better it will be. And those changes were made, about a year and a half ago. Ryan Vietlock worked really well on that. And it allows for 3 units on a normal size residential lot, which a lot would be in what we call R6, which are those more core neighborhoods, more established neighborhoods. And so we think it's a great way for locations and things. Because of the partnership that we have with New Beginnings, they actually have first right of refusal on 3 of the land bank properties where this program, if successful, would move to the next 3 locations. So I think it's a great opportunity and a great program and would fit the needs of affordable housing as well as kind of creative new housing, which we haven't seen. Their design for the units is really outstanding in my opinion. So I think you'll be very happy. Where you'll see this particular project will be right across from the Hutch Lofts off Main Street, just south of the radio station's property. It's just right off the alley behind the business buildings,
think it's
but it'll be very
on Eighth
visible.
Street.
Yeah, be very visible from Main Street as people travel. So it'll just add to that experience, and I think it's going to be a dynamite project. And as I say, it will not only help with the New Beginnings programs, they plan on working towards building those themselves, which then would incorporate even a fuller circle of opportunity as they train their folks for jobs and things like that. So I think it's really one of those real win-win situations.
I just wanted it to be pointed out that we are doing things to try to improve neighborhoods. We're trying to, make it to where they're better and that they're being used in an appropriate way to help people. And I appreciate your work on changing that to where we can.
Well,
do
like I
things
say,
like
the
that.
credit goes to Ryan and working with New Beginnings, and it's the kind of things we have to continue to look at as how we can make those spaces more desirable. The container homes is another exciting idea and things like that. I did want to add a little. Angela's done a wonderful job on this, and I kind of left her in a lurch because I work so closely with all the people applying for the grants. I didn't feel like I should set in on the decision making, which left her, if you look at the timeline, she's had another city manager to work with. She's had several of the original ARPA team members leave, and so it's just been one thing after another. But she's done a wonderful job in working with this. And iParametrics, we talked to them. They wanted to guard against like gentrification of buildings and things like that. And I said, as much as I'd love to tell you that was happening, that is not the case with downtown buildings. And when you invest in a project in a downtown building, it fixes a building as much as it helps an owner. And that's really, really important too. You're not going to pick up a chiller and move it. So,
Well, I could speak to the attributes of all three of these, and I think it's for me, it's just how I think this money should be spent, to try to bolster up long-term, something that isn't money that just goes away, but it's for our future 50 years.
And the other great safety net in my mind is if, God forbid, something happened to where one of the projects didn't move forward or whatever, SCED and Interfaith Housing are doing such a great job with their renovation programs and things like that. That would be an easy place to put any sort of monies towards just beefing up what they're already doing, and it's making a big difference. Really excited with work that's coming out of the housing commissioners, and that was part of Angela's issues too. Almost everyone on the housing commission wrote a letter of support or was on a board, or because they're just great people all working hard to try to make housing better for everybody. So she did a yeoman's job getting through all of this.
Well, I'm anxious to see how the Housing Commission, how that money gets spent. Hopefully, long-term like this, that could really make a difference.
Yeah, and of course, waiting to see what the big pot left, and there's good opportunity there, and I'm confident they'll do really good things there. And having a senior moment, I had something else I wanted to add, but it slipped away, so I apologize.
We'll make sure that's put in the minutes.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that I appreciate that these projects are going to infill empty lots in town or improve downtown. I'm all about, all of Hutch is great, but I think there are a lot of empty properties that get overlooked when it comes to investors coming and building new homes, and they're in the core of the city. And I think that these are great programs, and I look forward to, 5-10 years from now, looking back on this and saying, hey, we helped move these forward.
Yeah, and I think Steve and I get beat up a lot about stuff not going on in the southern part of town. These projects are south of 11th Street. So,
One of the things to to be clear, New Beginnings, the spec that I've seen is for 3 homes on the property. Not quite sure if they can do all 3. We know they can fund the 2, so I think that's how it's going to start. So I just want to make sure we have that clarification.
Yeah, thank you. That is totally correct. And it did come back to me thanks to what you just said. But one of the exciting things coming out of the Housing Commission and maybe some of the other ARPA entries is we're committed to hiring help to tell the story, to explain and show what the ARPA monies has done to improve housing in Hutchinson and Reno County. So we're really excited about that, and hopefully we'll have something like that to show you in a few months too, because it's a working document.
And if I made one last final thing, is that this is such a great movement in the right direction for our community, but we also have to consider the long term. We have to figure out ways to have some sustainability to keep driving and to capitalize on this momentum. So that's the challenge next. That's the next challenge we want to take on.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions on this? If not, I think Stacy was going down the road of making a motion.
Yeah, I'll do it. I move to award the grants as recommended, and authorize the mayor to sign all legal documents.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions on this? If not, please call roll.
Garza.
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes.
Fast.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes, next item, please. Thank
Item
you.
9, report of city officials.
All right, Ms. Goss, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. I was just finishing my notes. I'll start with the last thing that I was about to type. So I just want to thank everybody who worked so hard, the Housing Commission and then the committees from our ARPA work over the past months and months, and probably feels like longer than that. But thanks for the work that you guys have done to move the needle on these projects and make sure that we're in line with all of the regulations that you guys know more about than we do. So just wanted to say thank you for that. I encourage everybody to download the C-Click Fix app or familiarize yourself with the website. From here, you can submit repair requests for things like potholes, alley repairs, trash in parks, and code violations. I submitted one this morning. It takes about 2 minutes.
Can you, now, I actually went in there and tried to find this, and I mean, I could not come up with it. Can you explain how?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not horrible at this stuff, but I mean, I could
So
not find it.
I will do you one better. I will record my screen submitting a code violation or something, and then and maybe the website itself has its own demonstration, but
Where do you go on the website? I mean, I couldn't.
if you go to the website, you click on where it says Hutchinson, Kansas.
So it's right on when you pull up Hutch.gov, right
Yeah.
on the city's website, there's a box that says C-Click Fix, and you click on that.
Where?
It's right on it says City of Hutchinson, the beautiful picture. Just scroll up a little bit, and there's 3 boxes, and usually it's the middle one or the,
I didn't see that.
Yep.
So okay.
it's
Okay.
right around there.
Okay,
Yep.
go
So
ahead.
if you
I'm
go
sorry.
here, you
Yes,
go
I think it
Hutchinson,
sounds like
Kansas.
a great plan.
Yeah. So it also gives you an easy way to track the progress of your request. You can submit it anonymously, or you can provide your email address in case they have questions. Like if it's your own alleyway that you're requesting, and I know this sounds like a sales pitch, but this is one of the things that I know we all get a lot of complaints or emails or calls, and it's like, yes, that's great. You can submit that through C-Click Fix. If it's something like your own alleyway that you're requesting to be repaired, if you have pictures, if it's a rain issue, that sort of thing, if you can submit your information, the city can contact you and ask questions or ask for pictures or get a better location, that sort of thing. So download the app, familiarize yourself with the website. It's a really great tool that we have at our disposal that helps us serve you guys, which are our customers. The other pitch I'm going to give you is for the Everbridge alert notifications. It alerts you for if there are like severe weather issues. The other day I was out in my yard pulling weeds and playing with my kids, and I got an alert that there was a severe thunderstorm warning. I had no idea, and that allowed us to take the precautions necessary. So Everbridge is another tool that you're already paying for as taxpayers, so I encourage everybody to sign up for those alerts. I would like to thank our youth council for the work that they've done over the past 12 months. They're getting ready to hold their elections and may have some turnover, so thank you to those who have served, and I encourage students interested to apply. I will make one more plea for my fellow council members. Not one more, I'll nag you about it more, but one more plea for you guys to consider my proposed changes to our oral communications rules, if you will, in order to better serve our people. I think we should allow more input from them and more timely input. And with that, I am through.
Mr. Conklin?
Yes, I would like to go back and talk about a couple things we talked about last meeting. The first is the idea that our mayor here threw out about this having a special district taxing, or a property tax thing. We have a program that's south of 11th currently, but it really doesn't get much use. I'm just speaking generally. It's been in effect a long time and has not been utilized much. Certainly hasn't produced the desired effect that we would all like to see. I thought you have an excellent idea of establishing a zone, whether I don't know what street it should be, whether that's south of A Street, or I'm not trying to promote a specific street, but I think most everybody in town wishes and wants some improvement and development south of basically A Street. There's nice houses down there. There's some nice buildings, commercial buildings, and then there's a lot that really need a lot of work. And basically, it's been this way forever. This is not new. It's an issue that has been around for as long as I've been around. And it hasn't improved. It's not improving. It's not changing. I think that your idea has a chance, if it's done well, to actually maybe make a difference. And the idea that I think you have to take the right approach. There's not going to be any property taxes coming in down there that's from anything. There hasn't been, and there's not going to be. So we're not, if we waive the improvements, if we say we got a $100,000 building and they spend $50,000 and improve it, if we say, all right, we're going to give you a 5-year complete exemption, or 10-year complete exemption, or 5-year complete exemption on the improvement, or 5 years complete and then 5 years more, 50% off. We're not cash negative there.
Right.
There's nothing happening down in that area. I say nothing. There's not enough. That's for sure. Not even close to enough. There's lots of potential for development, but the incentive has got to be significantly improved. People constantly say, how come nothing's happening? How come nobody does anything? Well, it doesn't make economic sense currently. And anything that is being developed and done is being done on the north end because it's more economically viable. But if you gave a significant tax break to projects that are being done south of wherever it's established, that could be the thing that really actually starts driving some, and I think it should be residential, it should be commercial, it should be owner occupied and landlord occupied. I mean, what we want is improvements. What we need is improvements.
Let's talk about how much.
Well, I
Like,
don't know.
not tax breaks, but how much improvement should you have to do to a house
Well, right
to
now,
qualify?
right now, I believe it's $7,000 for a residential property.
Paul,
Okay.
can you chime in on this? Is there any regulation that we have to follow for setting this program?
Well,
Besides when we
it's our
vote,
program,
when we
and-
renew?
and we set the percentages.
Okay.
Okay.
But
Now, we
have-
do have to get the other taxing
3
entities
years.
to go along with it, yeah.
And it renews in 3 years, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I sent that out to all.
Right.
And Stuart, I couldn't agree with you more. I do take offense because I use that program to do my project
Well, I
on
don't
Main
mean it,
Street.
you
And
you
it was
understand, you know
helpful.
what I mean.
I would have
You know
probably
what I
done the
mean.
project
Yes,
even without that. But man, these little things really help people like me that I consider just common folks that want to do something unique or, you know, improve a property. I'm all in on this. and
well,
I-
this is the mayor's idea,
Yeah.
and I think it's an
No,
outstanding
and-
idea, and I've thought about it, and I thought it was, when
Yeah.
he first said it, I thought that's a hell
What
of
a
an
neat
idea.
way to
I've been
incentivize
thinking
people
about
to
it, I
do
think it's a
things.
tremendous idea.
Yeah,
yes.
and, you know, and furthermore, this housing stuff that we just approved, what does that do for our tax base? It increases it. And, you know, I struggled with their proposals having to pay a building permit for this money. You know, I'm like, maybe we should waive that to help encourage that, but you're spot on.
Well, and in
Stuart.
10 years or whatever, then that, and,
Yeah.
I mean, there's but we don't want to make it so, difficult that nobody wants to apply. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
needs to be, it needs to be sensible and easy, and we need to explain to our citizens that this isn't, we're not lowering their taxes. I mean, we're basically encouraging to develop down there, reinvest.
We're not gonna harm you by
No.
you making improvements on
Absolutely
the property.
none. There's
that
none.
you own.
We're not lowering the tax base any.
Right.
And we will eventually, in this 10-year period, I don't know, I think it has to be a pretty good timeline. We'll have could significantly have improved our tax base and the whole conditions on the south side of the town that everybody wants to see improved.
So
And
I want to chime in for a second because I think that those are the lofty goals of the program, but it has to be paired with strategic communication from the city to the residents as well, because
Yes.
we can change the rules and regulations all we want, but if nobody knows how they work, then they don't do any good. And just like you were saying, it sounds like there's already some misconceptions about how this works. Is it a tax break? Is it a rebate? That sort of thing. So I think if we change them, we need to be mindful about what's the strategy. And I think Mary Grace will do a great job executing this, or whoever may be in that seat later on. But it has to be paired with a strong education campaign.
Yes.
Not just let's change the rules and move on, but let's change the rules and then let's revisit it and let's talk about it again in 6 months and in a year.
Well,
and
I think
all
it
of that.
needs a lot of promotion.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
The only other thing I'd throw out here on this is, and the discussion was a rebate. I don't know, maybe legally we have to do it that way. I hope not, because some of the projects, if you have to pay the tax up front and then you get the rebate, that can be a cash flow problem for it. There's really no sense in that, except if there's some legal requirement that it be that way. I mean, it would be preferred if it could just be locked in, and
yet, would you?
Pardon?
You wouldn't pay
Oh, no,
it
you
yet,
pay
would
the
you?
new assessment.
It's a
And then
rebate.
you
See,
get a
that's the
rebate.
part
Then you
I don't
file
like.
for
I
it.
prefer
Okay.
the other, but maybe we can't do that. But I just throwing that out there.
Paul's
So-
gonna slap our hands here
Yeah,
and say,
okay,
no,
well,
no,
no,
no.
I know we gotta stay within the law, I'm not trying to, okay. The other thing, and I think we need to move that forward. Now, I don't know what the process here is, that a planning, is that a planning commission thing? Or where do we go to get this idea, rather than just sitting up here talking about it and nothing happening? What do we do about this to
Well, it's
get,
probably a number of things, including the planning commission, including probably the housing commission, and I see my good friend Jim Seidnader there, and also the city council.
well, so where do we start?
So-
So what's the next step? I mean,
I would recommend we put together, formulate take what we currently have, tweak it to what we want it to be, like just with the additional areas, because we already have something in play that we utilize. The Housing Commission meets next Wednesday, see if we put that on the agenda to put it in front of them, get it in front of planning, and then come back to you as soon as we can with a recommendation from those two divisions. Jim, would you not agree with that?
Yeah, no, I think that's extremely good thinking, and I totally agree with what Mr. Conklin said. It's a great idea, it's a target, you're putting a huge tool in the toolbox for other people to use, as Greg said, and it was a hugely important part of downtown's revitalization, building by building. So it does work. In a couple of cases, the major developers would say that their underwriters thought that was one of the strongest pieces of their financing packages because they knew what their tax rate was going to be for 10 years. So it's a great tool, important tool, and then when you target it, it makes it a more powerful tool to accomplish.
And I
what you're
would
looking at.
throw out, I mean, I really believe this needs to apply to all, whether that's owner-occupied houses, landlord
And it
houses.
does.
It does.
currently
Well,
does, yeah.
And commercial properties, because there's plenty of those that could use some significant upgrade. And so, you know, the other thing, the utility problem, you know, the thing with the Evergy and all the substation and all that, I think we should look at whether we can write an ordinance. It was said that, Emporia and Manhattan or whatever had ordinances. Certainly, we've got to be reasonable and fair for the, and we, you know, the utilities have laws and rights that we must, but we, you know, accept but if there are situations where we can make some sort of an impact, I think that needs to be done too. I mean, I don't think any of us, certainly I'm not, happy that that what was done could be done. But it was legal and it was done, and there was nothing that was going to stop it from being done. Because we didn't, and maybe there's nothing we can do in the future to stop that from being done. But that would be a real shocker to all of us, any of us. And the fact is, and I'm not bagging on anybody. The fact is, there's all kinds of places along Lorraine that could have been utilized that are not next to a residential area. And I don't know why, I'm assuming it's the cost, they were able to get it very reasonable, I would assume, and that was what prompted the decision that they made to acquire that, and maybe there's nothing we can do or write to stop that. I'm talking about, is there an ordinance we can write that goes forward? You know, we can't go backwards here, but goes forward for something next, you know.
Wichita has some of those ordinances, and my issue with that whole project, it's huge. It is
Yes.
such a big project.
Yes, it is. When you stop and think about it, it's bigger than a football field.
Yeah.
And that's a big substation. And but it was all legal. And I mean, it was, I don't think I certainly am not in favor of it, but it was legal and it was their right. But is there something that we can come up with an ordinance that somehow offers some protection to, and maybe we can't, but I think we should look into it and see what those other cities have. And maybe their ordinances aren't any good either. I mean, I don't, just because you write an ordinance doesn't mean it's any good. But anyway. And then the last thing, but I think that should be put forward because that stuff takes time. And who knows what's next? I mean,
I believe planning and zoning is working on
Okay.
seeing what can be done in that.
the next thing I have is a little personal. And I have, we've talked about this in our budget meetings, not about this specific part of it, but we in Hutchinson and in Reno County are in constant competition with Wichita and Sedgwick County. And we do have to compete. And in fact, we are competing every day, all day long, on every front with Sedgwick County and Wichita. For employees, for customers, for business expansions, for housing, for everything. And there is, so we talked about that, and we do have to be competitive, even though we would all agree, well, we're not really on the same basis as Wichita. We're more like Newton or Salina. Well, yeah, that's true, except we're really having to compete against Wichita. That's where the competition is, even though it's not necessarily you could call a fair comparison, but it is. That's who we compete against. But that applies to the sales tax too. And as this sales tax unwinds, I know that when you go to the subway and you spend an extra 30 cents on your subway bill for your tax that nobody gives a darn, when you come to buy just an average price $50,000 car, that's just an average price, when you have a tax that is 1.1% currently, it was even higher with the jail on there, it was 1.6%. We are at you put every big ticket item dealer in Hutchinson, in Reno County, at a tremendous disadvantage. And in fact, you stop the people from Wichita from coming over and buying. And the tax, I think we're 8.6 right now. Wichita's 7.6 or 5, yeah. So, on a $50,000 vehicle, that's $550. That's just a $50,000 one. There's plenty of $100,000 ones. 50. I'm just making. That's an average price vehicle today. That stops people. Now, the person from Hutchinson doesn't save a dime by going over to Wichita and buying it. You have to pay the extra $550 when you come back to the courthouse. What it stops all people from Sedgwick County from coming over here to buy any kind of higher priced vehicle or other equipment that is expensive, because you don't get it back. So the retailer is required by law to collect it. So when it stops people from Wichita, they're saying, I'm not going to pay $500 or $600 more tax to go over there. Hell no, I won't do that. And so that's the situation. And we can say, and I agree, Wichita's got an unrealistic low sales tax. Everybody else around us, or more or less, is 8.6 or 9, but not our main competitor, Wichita, which is 7.5 and has been forever. And there is no movement to increase their tax. And so it is it's another really important thing that we are competing with Wichita on. And we used to have more Wichita traffic and sales. And when I say that, I mean all of the dealerships in Hutchinson did. And because we were on a level playing field on the tax, and we can compete on a level playing field. When we have to start off by having a $500 fine by crossing the Reno County line from the Sedgwick County line, that makes it difficult to. And all of the dealerships in Wichita make that very clear to anybody that from Wichita that is out shopping, saying, well, I'm going to go over to Hutchinson and shop around. Well, you're an idiot. You're going to pay their extra tax. Is that what you want to do? Is pay an extra $500-600 to their taxes? That's what you're doing when you go over there. So, and that is what they say, and that's what that, and it does impact people. There's lots of people that'll go from one town to another to save $500. And we start off with a $500 penalty just right off the bat. So that is I understand the sales tax thing helped get the sports arena done. I understand all that. We're not competitive with our main competitor, which is Wichita. So as this they're still going to be at 7.5 as this sales tax unwinds in a year or two, whenever it's decided. We're still going to be above. I think it was 3,500, isn't it? 3.5%, 3.5%, and or 0.35%. So we're still going to be 0.7 higher when that's off. So I think we have to compete with Wichita on every front. I've talked about that in the wage negotiations. I've talked about that in the budget meetings, and it's an appropriate thing to talk about here now. I know we're not discussing it right now, but I just think that needs to be understood, that is a real stumbling block on bigger ticket items. And it would be to probably everybody sitting here at the table. Whoa, if Wichita was $500 higher, if they had the 8.6 and we had 7.5, that would keep people from here going over there. I'll guarantee you that. And that's what's occurring. That's where all the people are. The 500,000 people are all over there. And they do, if it's an even playing field, they do shop, and they will go somewhere else to buy. They'll shop there, but they'll go anywhere. We're the closest thing they got. So anyway, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Fast?
I think I just yielded my time to Stuart. So one more thing. Do we need to let, on this neighborhood improvement area tax rebate, do we need to wait 3 years, or are we going to move forward with some of?
You can certainly talk about it now. It's been amended in the past.
Okay. All right. Very good. Just curious on the timeline. There's Michael Glenn's here. He's started an interesting newspaper, I guess I would call it. It's more of a blog, but it's called the Hutch Tribune. I have been reading and watching. The reporting is very accurate, very detailed, and much local news. It's mainly local. So anyway, you might give it a look. That's all I got.
Thank you. Mr. Garza?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to, Mr. Stewart, you're right on that. Well, it's going to take a lot of work to get us to where we can get to 7.5. I'm not a tax expert, but I do think the population over there has something to do with it. I don't know. I'm just guessing off top. Other than that, I agree. City council meeting is tonight. The youth council, they have one more meeting after this, and then they will be, I won't say out of office, they will be, some of them are going to try to run again. All the young teenagers out there run for this office. Run for the office. We need the young involved. Without the young, Hutchinson will be in trouble. So please, tonight, come to the meeting tonight. It's at 5:30 right here. Support your youth. When they come here and there's nobody sitting in the audience, I can see it in their faces why we even here. But I don't blame much more of the youth. And the youth needs to come to their meetings. This is their council. They have to support their own students. We need everybody here, from youth to adults. I like to see everybody here. They're going to be. In August is their last meeting, and they're going to start re-elections. The re-elections will go through September. We'll start in September and stuff like that. So if you're a teenager in junior high school, look at this. You have a say. We have developed something for you to have a say. You can't tell us now on this council here that you don't have a say. They gave you a council, so use it. Okay? Me and Mr. Fass was out there the 60th anniversary of the museum last night, and it was great. A lot of people there. Had a movie. It was pretty good. All right. Talking about this, and I agree with you guys, need to do on the south end of town. We have stuff in there now to help the south end. A lot of it is because they don't know what's going on. On the 24th, I had a meeting, one of my meetings down in the south end of town at the zone. The way we're going to get this out is getting people informed. At my meeting, we had interfaith housing there, talking to the audience about how to apply for the interfaith housing. That was great. Probably going to have a lot more people going to interfaith housing for health and getting into their programs. And it's all about communication. We have to communicate with the south end of town, or everybody in town. Our communication over there, and that's why I started that meeting on Saturdays. I'm getting more and more people coming to my meetings, and they're learning about stuff that's happening on the south end of town. So that's one way we're going to have to somehow get out there. And my meeting is a great place to get out to the people, let them know what's going on. I have a lot of people come out there. I'd like to thank everybody who comes out there to my meetings. Water breaks. I've been seeing we have a lot of water breaks out in our town. Thank you to our water workers that are out there fixing our water breaks. That's just one showing you that city employees are very, very important. Support your employees. They're the ones out there in the heat, 100-degree heat, in the ditches, fixing those mains and getting them going. Man, you guys took all my glory. Everything, I have to take everything out of here now. But other than that, please come tonight to the meeting. I like to see a lot of people here. They have one more meeting, and this is in August. So support those kids and get out there and support them, and encourage your young kids to get involved in the city council. Other than that, Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I really don't have anything to add from the conversation here. I'll pass it along to Ms. Clements.
I'd like to start to actually what Mr. Garza said. I want to thank all the city employees. We've had some incredible events going around town, and all the city employees have stepped up. They in this heat, moving barriers, walking streets, putting out flowers, and in this heat specifically. But I appreciate all the hard work and dedication that they do each and every day to, behind the scenes, keep things moving. I wanted to tell that we are tomorrow going to be doing second interviews with our candidates for the chief of police position. So we're excited to continue that process moving forward. I wanted to, Councilwoman Goss had talked about See, Click, Fix. Please utilize that, but I wanted to make one point. Even if you put a request in there, doesn't mean a city employee will call you. It means they will fix the problem. I just don't want you to think, everyone, if you put it in, you'll receive a call from us. They'll call you if they need a clarification on what you've entered. So I wanted to set that up. Other thing I needed to talk about is you will start to see, and we're going to start to communicate out that as of September 1st, we're going to change the ability for security reasons. We're going to transition from our customer service agents taking water payments over the phone. You're not going to be able to accept that. We will not accept that after September 1st. We have a new flyer we're going to be putting out. We'll put it out in other languages as well, to talk about the 4 different ways that you can pay, or you just won't be able to call up and pay your bill over the phone anymore after September 1st. So that's something we're going to start to communicate out to the public. I wanted you to hear it here. There's security reasons why we can't take that information, credit cards over the phone. We're just not equipped to do that in a safe, efficient way. I wanted everyone to know that's coming, because it is going to affect some population, and it's just education as how we're going to fix that. And lastly, I just want to remind all citizens, it's extremely hot. Please stay safe and stay hydrated, and thank you for all the hard work. That's it.
All right, thank you. With that said, the next item is adjournment. I would entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Please call roll.
Garza,
Yes.
Conklin.
Yes.
Goss,
Yes.
Fast,
Yes.
Hutchinson.
Yes, thank you, everybody.